Good morning. For anyone that hasn't been involved before, my name is Kenneth Campbell. I'm the Chairman of the Energy Efficiency Association, and this is the latest in our series of question and answers sessions with BEIS about the Green Home Grant Scheme. With the Green Home Grant Scheme closing to new applications, this will probably be our last meeting about this the subject on the voucher side of things. But we have with us today, as well as Ruth Richmond from the Green Home Voucher Scheme. We also have Kate Duffy from BEIS, who is going to talk to us about the LADS scheme and the local authority delivery side of things to do with the Green Home Grant. We are very pleased to have them both with us. Simon Ayres, we hope, will join us shortly, and he's going to say a couple of things about Trustmark as well. We trust that things are starting to move a little bit more now that the scheme has stopped taking new applications. The latest Green Home Grant stats were published this morning, and they're showing some encouraging movement. But I think I will let Ruth take over and say a few words, and thank you, Ruth.
Hello everybody. I'm only going to speak very briefly today because I think obviously I know Kate's got plenty to say on the LADS scheme, and I'm sure you'll have lots of questions as well. So what I am going to say, this is the first time that I've spoken to you all since the 31st of March, and I know you'll all be aware of the detail of that announcement, but also I wanted to add my personal reassurance to that, what was in that announcement, that we are processed, that all the applications that were in the system prior to the closure will be processed, and as all the way through we have been with the scheme, we're working closely with ICF with the aim of getting those processes right and getting the vouchers and payments issued quickly, and getting things to work better for all of you. On that note, as part of working through that backlog of applications, I understand that ICF sent out a slightly confusing email a couple of days ago about high cost quotes. So I know there've been a few questions about this. I don't have all of the questions from you, but what I will say is that email was an all installer email, as they call them. So it will have gone out to all of you. It may not apply to all of you. And it only specifically on the forms. I know there's been a question about why the form doesn't have all technologies on it, or measures on it. That's because it doesn't apply to all measures. But this is basically part of ICF trying to work their way through those applications that have been stuck because they've got at the higher end of the ones that we've received, but potentially still justifiable. So that form is to help, is for customers to be able to say yes, they're comfortable with that cost, they're comfortable going ahead. So the applicant, they're aware that it's at the higher end, but they're comfortable with it, and any explanation that you've given them as to why that is, for example, about property, and then those applications can be processed. I appreciate this is more paperwork and it's not ideal, but hopefully the end is in sight. This will actually get those applications that have been stuck, some of them for quite a while, out of the system. Obviously, detailed questions on that process and on those particular vouchers are best directed to ICF. But I thought it helpful if I explained it a little bit more. And more generally, I wanted to thank you all for your input and patience all the way through this sort of scheme and the challenges that have been with it. We are, of course, taking those lessons into account as we look into future schemes. I mean, for all Kenneth introduced me as being on the voucher scheme, my role is actually wider than that. I work on supply chain issues across all the schemes we run in all the home space. So I'm really keen to make sure that we're learning the lessons, we're feeding those into other schemes, and we're getting other schemes to work better for you. Kenneth mentioned the stats that we released this morning. A quick highlight from those. Those are obviously the March 31st up to 31st of March stats. So the numbers on those were 113,700. Yeah, that's the right number. Sorry, I couldn't read my numbers there. 113,700 applications received, 43,500 vouchers issued. However, obviously those numbers have increased since then. So obviously not statistically verified, but we think we've issued something like 49,000 vouchers, which are worth over 208 million now issued to date. And on that note, I think I will hand over, because I don't want to take up too much time on the voucher scheme, and I'm sure we're keen to move on to talk about some of the other things you want to discuss.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Yeah, I was going to ask Simon to say a few words at this point, but he's having problems connecting. So I'm going to ask Kate if she will take over and say what she can about the LAD scheme. And thank you very much, Ruth.
Great, thank you both. Firstly, yeah, thank you for inviting me along. What I've done, very typical civil servant, is I've got a few slides, but I'm very aware that people probably don't know the LAD scheme as well as the voucher scheme. So I'm going to start at basics. I know there's a few specific questions that you have sent through. So if they're not answered in my few slides, then we can have a Q&A. But just to introduce myself, so I'm the LAD policy lead. I lead across the existing phase 1 and phase 2. There was some further funding that was announced on the 27th of March. So we're just kind of working through that extension, what it means for the scheme. I do need to caveat everything today that we're in the middle of PERDA. So anything on new policy, absolutely not allowed to say, else I'll get in serious trouble. But also I am the BEIS project sponsor on the PAS standards. So before LAD, I worked on Each Home Counts and the development of PAS 2035 and for my SINs 2030-2019. So any questions on those specifically, I hope I can help as well. But if I just crack on, I'm going to share my screen. So do give me a shout. Hopefully you'll be able to see. Okay. Can you see that one okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Right. Okay. So we know what the scheme's called. So diving straight into it. The scheme was actually announced at the same time as the vouchers scheme. So instead of the 1.5 billion that went into vouchers, there was 500 million. And that's been kind of allocated on the side to help local authorities deliver energy efficiency and really only focusing on low income households. So delivery has been split into originally 2 phases, and that saw 200 million of funding going directly through local authorities through a competition that was managed by BEIS. And then on phase 2, we have 300 million that's being allocated through the local energy hubs. So there's 5 regional or local energy hubs across England. And they're kind of managing things like frameworks, procurements, and trying to get local authorities that aren't necessarily upskilled and able to bid directly to BEIS involved in the scheme as well. So the scheme is predominantly focused on insulation and low carbon heating. Because of the cost caps, we're really focused on the high value for money measures. So I'm going to get into measures in a bit more detail. I know that people are interested in that. But just a reminder, this is only low income houses and it's only in England. So we've got this lovely chart here to try and kind of explain what the phases are looking like. So phase 1 actually ends up being split into 2. So we have 74 million in the first competition that got allocated. And that was because originally it was only meant to run till March. And as you can understand, bidding to deliver over just a winter period didn't get quite as many bids as we would have liked. So that's now been extended all the way out to the end of June. Because we had a bit of underspend there, or substantial underspend, we launched a second competition to run from February through to September, so capturing more of the summer period. And we got 81 projects in that one for 126 million. So that brought us up to the 200 million allocated directly to local authorities through a competition to BEIS. And as I said, the second phase is through local energy hubs. That's later. And the reason that's taken a little bit longer to get in to place is because the energy hubs themselves had to set up sourcing strategies, understand how they're going to do full regional procurement. So a little bit more complex than what we expect from local authorities directly, but also hoping to get a bit more outreach. But we have got about 200, just over 200 local authorities engaged already, and we do expect that to increase. So really good geographical coverage. So I've just said what it's delivering, but this is just to give an idea of kind of the household numbers. So in phase 1A, it's predicted that we can reach up to 10,000 low-income households, and that was over 100 local authorities that bid in for that one. Adding on to that, we have phase 1B, so that's another 15,000 homes. And obviously these are kind of our top limits. We understand it's about kind of what supply and demand there is there, but that's kind of what we're aiming for with that type of funding. And then in phase 2, that's another 30,000 homes. So big numbers of homes here across the whole of England. So I want to quickly go over the scheme rules. I think before I get into this kind of detail, it's just probably worth explaining how it works between BEIS and local authorities. So when local authorities bid into us, they would say, these are the measures that we want to deliver. So they would say, we've got 300 homes in our area. We're going to do, half of them are going to be cavity wall, half are going to be air source heat pump, for example. And then we would assess that and value for money. So what we were trying to get away from was kind of lots of low cost interventions like draft proofing and glazing only. So those are good measures, but they work better when we're looking at really improving the fabric of the building. So we don't set what local authorities have to do, but we do kind of assess the bids as they come in and what they want to do in the area. So which homes are eligible? We are focused on E, F and G, although we have allowed some D-rated properties in. And this is mainly to allow for pepper potting. So if you had a street or a block of flats and you had a few Ds in there, it's not cost effective to say, well, actually, we're just going to leave those as we are. It's more cost effective to do area-based delivery. So we've allowed some in, but we are trying to limit those. So we are kind of really targeting on the worst homes. So the eligible households, as I said, is low income. I think I've said that 4 times now. So those are the households that are earning under 30k in total, or we can use suitable proxies. So that might be using things like EcoFlex, which allows, you don't have to do the same testing, or social housing might be a proxy for low income as well. On contractors, very similar to the vouchers. We're more aligned to eco on things like the transition, but we're saying PAS standards for energy efficiency with Trustmark registration and MCS for low carbon. Phase 1 kicked off before the transition from 2017 to 2019. So up until the end of the transition, the 30th of June, the industry can keep going to those standards. After that, and for phase 2, we're straight into 2035. Eligible measures, I know this one has come up. So we don't have primary and secondary measures. We didn't specify measure mixes that had to happen. We have said that any energy efficiency measures or heating measures that are in SAP and are not fossil fuel are included, and again really focusing on those high-hitting measures. What I would say around that, I know there's questions around things like spray foam, and there's been kind of some noise in the market about what's happening there. Is you do have to meet the kind of scheme rules of Trustmark, and I think there's some issues around guarantees, and if you can't get a guarantee for a measure, then obviously you wouldn't be able to lodge that, so you can't use it. And with that one particular, I know there was a question that came through this morning from you, Kenneth, was because we haven't set out a list of measures, we said, you know, these are the ones you can do, just make sure you meet the rules. If they cannot get the guarantees, especially as we're treating low-income houses that wouldn't be able to deal with any repercussions from things going wrong, then obviously that would be out of scope. We'd hope there'd be different technologies that could be used in those scenarios. So this really horrible slide, I'm sorry, I always put it in and then I always regret it when I get to it, but this is just trying to break down the differences between phase 1A, phase 1B and 2. But what I suggest is I'll just circulate these slides after, so you can go into them. I won't go into a lot of detail, but I think it's just about kind of, there's slight differences. The main one is around PAS standards and around the transition, which, you know, we've known that's coming for a while, but if you're happy for me not to go into detail, we can kind of move on. Although I will say there's one thing I want to pick out, and it's just around the cost cap. So we had to align to the voucher scheme. So for owner occupiers that are low income, you can get 10k subsidy and they don't have to contribute at all. Where a property is rented, and that can be privately or socially rented, the maximum subsidy is £5,000, but the landlord has to contribute a third of the total cost. So that's not a third of the 5,000, it's a third of the project. So if you've got 5k, you'd have to contribute 2,500 towards that. I'm going to speed through and we'll take questions at the end if that's all right. So great. So I think this is quite good. I wanted to show that there is quite a spread of kind of geographical reach. So if we look at the third graph, you're seeing what's happening in phase 1 overall. We do have some kind of grey areas where we haven't managed to get local authorities involved yet. But as I said, in phase 2, we're really looking to kind of galvanise those areas and use connections across the whole regions to try and get delivery. But it's not all just focus. I know there was worries about it's all just going to be in the southeast or it's all going to be in certain places. So we've got really good spread already, and we're hoping to improve that one. Really briefly, just wanted to touch on future funding. I think one of the questions we get a lot, and also as policy officials, we argue to the deaf door, is a bit more longevity. And I think part of the problem is going, well, you've got LAD funding, you've got 500 million, and we've got to do it in a year and a half. And I understand that can be quite, if you know there's a deadline, it's like, well, why would I invest in kind of certifying it and going for tenders across this? But we do have quite a lot of things that have already been announced. The big one was, well, we've got another 300 million that's going into LAD, which is great. And I'm hoping that after PERDA, we'll be able to share some more details. So perhaps I can come along to one of these after PERDA and kind of give some more information on how that's going to be spent. We've also got $1 billion going through public decarbonisation. I know that's probably a different market. It's not quite the domestic market, but good to be aware that it's out there. The Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, already up and running, 62 million. This is only 17 local authorities, but it's really about deep dive whole house, and there's higher cost caps on that one. So it's a slightly different cut of the market. And then the big one coming up next is the home upgrade grants. So that's the HUG scheme. We like to come up with these weird names. So that's another $1 billion has been granted, and that was a manifesto commitment. So that's something that we know is coming. It's actually my sister team who's designing that. So we're trying to take as many learnings from the LAD scheme that we can push through into HUG. But that will only be focused on off gas, because we're really aware those are really hard to kind of get up and cost a bit more to getting to upgrade. And finally, and not least, I used to work on ECO back in 2013, so it's one of my little babies there, but that's again been extended through to 2026, and the obligations are going over $1 billion a year now. So we saw ECO kind of go down, we're seeing it come up again, and we hope that's quite a nice package that's a bit longer term that's coming in the future. And what we are really pushing for, as Ruth touched on a little bit, is looking across the whole supply chain and making sure that the rules for all these different schemes start to align. I'm very aware that didn't necessarily happen when we launched these schemes, mostly because they were done at speed. So although we had given a 2-year transition for PAS, at that time it was only kind of eco in the market, and then suddenly we're like, oh, here's some more billions of pounds. So we are planning for the long term on that one as well. So I think I said that all in one breath, but that is the end of my slides. You'll be glad to hear. I'm just going to stop sharing so I can see everyone and open up to questions. I think Gary's got his hand up.
I have my paw in the air. Whilst you were talking about spray foam and the guarantees, there was somebody that put on the chat that there are guarantees for spray foam. We'll obviously find out about the guarantee scenario, because we've been asked by quite a few about spray foam on pitch roofs.
Right.
I was called actually during the week regarding guarantees with spray foam. We have a number of members that deal with spray foam, so I'll try and get some information regarding that.
Yeah, that would be useful. And I think what we do is, we're not in a position to start insuring things. I know that was one of the suggestions. I'm like, oh God, do you really want us getting involved in that? Absolutely not. So I think, I don't know if Simon managed to join, but that would be something for Trustmark. They've got a financial panel that looks at kind of guarantees and how they sit. So yeah, absolutely do send that information over to them, and happy to be kept in the loop as well on that one.
Yeah, Simon's here now, so
sorry, apologies.
we got the brains back on the panel.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
No. As well as yourselves, obviously.
Oh, okay.
I have just put something back in that we are in discussions with a number of suppliers about options, and we've also got some new suppliers coming through to the financial protection panel at the moment. So it's sort of work in progress to get those through at the moment to make sure that we have all the areas covered. But any feedback, as I think Kate and you've said, Gary, would be really good, because it helps us sort of push things through at speed.
Thank you. Good to see you there, Simon. While you're on, do you want to just give a quick update on where things are from a Trustmark point of view? I was going to do this before we got onto.
So the first thing is I'm going to apologise for wearing headphones because there's so much noise outside my house at the moment, as the scaffolders removed scaffolding from my house, which, if you ever think of looking at health and safety issues, I'm not going to even look out the window at this moment in time as poles are flying off the roof, unfortunately. So Trustmark has obviously, and I'm sure Kate has updated you on lots of areas, been working quite closely with BAYS, but also looking at the compliance areas and the delivery areas in the post-completion area. We are heavily into now both doing desktop audits. So we have an obligation to do 10% desktop audits, and we are also doing 10% on site. 5% of those are made up from random visits, the other 5% of target visits. And I think it'd be great. And what I probably would suggest, Kenneth, is once we have got the sort of first real batch of on-site audits back, I'd really take the opportunity to come back and present them back, because there are some interesting challenges coming up. And I think, you know, the challenges will be, and I'm sure some of the people on the call are coming back to me already, complaining about things like ventilation being picked up. Yep, some of the standards that we're identifying are being pushed back as well. But we're also now pushing back to the schemes of those businesses, because there's a whole process here of how we make sure that we're ready for the onslaught of, you know, the bigger things that Kate's been talking about. But rather than sort of doing an ad hoc area on that, then I'd very much like to have the opportunity to come back and present properly on those. That's underway. We are established now and we are running. So that's across all the schemes. So we are looking at LADs, we are looking at eco, we're looking at what's coming out of the Green Home Grant Scheme. Yeah, and we will be picking up like social decarbonisation in these other areas as well. So there is a lot happening and a lot of information being gained, which is good because it's also looking at how we can support probably a focus and a strategy to make sure that we've got the capability to deliver. We're doing quite a lot of work. I know Kate's involved in this work as well around the PAS. So the transition from 2030-17 to 2030-19 come the 1st of July. How that will work, how it fits in, where it sits with work that's already been started under 2030-17. So there are all those areas coming on that we are now currently really in quite lengthy discussions, and both with industry as well, to try to build those, because everybody's looking for some answers because it is looming up quite quickly. So I think that's in progression. We are also having a number of conversations about multiple certification processes, because there are some challenges where lodgement happens. So it's the same organization doing a job in the same property, but lodging 3 different measures through 3 different certification bodies. And I'm not sure whether that's just because they like paying extra money, or they are trying to avoid any sort of level of audit or compliance regime. So we're just looking at how we make sure that everybody's being honest, fair, and game within that process. And I think it's, you know, I know there's been loads of negativity, and Trustmark's taken its fair share of flack over the Green Homes Grant Scheme. You know, we are a post-audit process. We are supporting at the front end. We are seeing numbers increase in terms of PAS registered businesses. So this morning, there were 1,487 PAS registered businesses. So that's gone up significantly, if you think, when we started. So I think people are starting to move to that process. And PAS is very much an oversight with a lot of subcontractors working within that. And from the original information, I think it's still about 20,000 businesses that support those PAS businesses. So it is a fairly major sector that we are talking about. And we are now obviously looking at the framework operating requirement and updating that in line with where BEIS are going. So I think there's a lot going on, a lot of unknowns, unfortunately, probably still at the moment while we finalise some of the areas with the PAS, but it is on the top of everyone's agenda, I can assure you of that. That's probably it, Kenneth, to be honest.
Thank you very much, Simon. That's appreciated. Yeah, hopefully we can address a couple of questions that have come in from people about some of the Trustmark stuff, but I will open the floor up to anyone who's got any questions. If you want to put to just let me know that you have a question to ask, you can either press the raise hand icon or put a question into the chat session. We will allow you to ask the questions. And the first one we have is Andre Tartza. Andre Tartza has a question.
Hello. Hi everyone. Thank you, Ken, and thank you, Gary, for organizing this. A big thank you to Ruth for really all the level of support during Green Home Grants and all these meetings. We've never had this level and sincere support. So really, thank you for that. And thanks to Kate for joining the meeting. And I think you indeed presented quite a lot of things, a lot of detail there, quite a chunky 2 minutes. I think it was about LUD, so I'll probably go and view that again after the meeting. It would be really good to hear a bit more about the value that local authorities are expected to add during LUD for installers. Thanks to Simon for joining us, and I hope it was external wall insulation, Simon, that you had on your house that required the scaffold. My question is really, is Green Home Grants done? Is this it? I think really another thank you to add is to ICF. They aren't here, but that's really the strongest and more sincere thank you that I'd like to give to the ICF organization, because although at the beginning when things were going wrong, I thought, okay, they were responsible for it. I was so impressed with the support we got from them, and we are there, so the scheme works. Okay, maybe there's still stuff that's got to come through the system, but it works. We've seen it increasingly and increasingly more. So I'm really optimistic, and my optimism goes as far as saying that this will maybe be reversed, the decision on Green Home Grants, and they'll decide in the next budget to increase the money again. And I'm going to address someone who's not in the meeting, and that's Rishi Sunak. Rishi, it's great to hear your announcements and all the energy and enthusiasm and passion you put in supporting businesses, like the Green Home Grants that you announced, like the Kickstarter scheme, which we've embraced. Go back to the drawing board in the next budget, or whenever you announce more things, extend the Green Home Grants, put the 2 billion back in there, and unleash this potential the industry has to go out there and insulate homes, put heat pumps, increase the energy efficiency. That's what we are here for. We've gone through lots of pain. 1 year is lost. The climate change crisis is still here. What's the point of going back now to square one? Build on what we've done. We've been with you, we've been with SPACE, we've been with ICF, embracing the scheme and putting up with all the difficulties. We've done the pain. Now give us some gain. Rishi, or whoever speaks to Rishi, get Rishi to look at this, please. My question, to get back to the questions now, and thank you so much, and sorry for taking a bit of time. I'm hoping a lot of what I say is, and I know it's shared by other installers, particularly the Think It to ICF, I know it's shared by other installers as well. My question is, how can we get some long-term planning as an industry? Eco 1, Eco 2, Eco 3, LAD 1A, LAD 1B, LAD 2. What's the point of that? What I loved about the Green Home Grants voucher scheme eventually, there was no number. When they've announced it as something long-term that the industry will get support over the next 10 years. I still hope that's going to come. Rishi, listen to this, please. Let's get away from the start-stop mentality. We need long-term planning. That's my first question. My second question is the last one before I stop, is pricing. What world are we living on, people? Are we in a socialist economy or are we in a market-free planning economy? Since 2012, when I set up the company, we've priced EWI at £100 per square meter. It's 2021, 9 years later. Prices have gone up. Brexit has happened. So many things. We've got to pay pensions to our employees, holidays, all the stuff, and we still get emails initiated by base, sent directly to customers to say the quote that you got from this installer is rejected because they are charging excessive prices. I mean, really, it cannot be like that. I'm all for upper caps on prices for external wall insulation or loft insulation, but can we then have the same materials? Can we have the same for energy, for vans? And let's turn it into a socialist republic after all, you know?
Right. I'm aware that, thank you very much for that, Andre. I'm just aware that we're pressed for time today. So I don't know if Ruth or Kate want to come back with anything.
I can come in on that, and I've seen there's quite a lot of questions in the chat around accessing land, so I'll try and cover off a few things at once there. Okay. I'm not going to get into the world of vouchers or pricing because it's not my policy. Ruth might want to say something, but you know, absolutely, we recognise that we need some more longer term planning. Unfortunately, in the last 2 years, we've been stuck with single year Treasury fundings, which means we can only kind of plan within the year that we've got funding for. And I know that isn't helpful. I'm hoping that some of the future funding that I have outlined has given a bit of confidence that there is, you know, more chunky things still coming. But until we kind of get away from this single year, and it's because we're in crisis with the pandemic and everything, back to kind of 3-4 year planning cycles, we can do that. But we are trying to feed that back. You know, and as a policy official, I'd love to say, well, you've got 10 years, go and plan something out. Unfortunately, that's out of my hands. What I would say, there's a lot of questions, and I think Andre did ask this as well, about how do installers register for LAD, or how do they get involved in the LAD scheme? Now, we don't have a register. Sorry, and the second part of that question is, what's the value add of using local authorities, I think was the second part. So the value add is we are really focused on homes that are likely to be in fuel poverty. And these homes don't tend to be the ones driving demand because they've got so much else on their plate that thinking about upgrades they can't afford is just not something that would come into their mind. So what we have seen is, especially with some of the work that's gone on with LA Flex and Eco, is that local authorities have a whole network of agencies, of information on benefits or on income tax, that they can identify the homes that really need this help. And that's something that BAYS as an organisation could not do by itself. So they have all these local outreach possibilities to get into their regions, and they know the homes. So that is the big one for us. And we have to remember the driver for this scheme is slightly different. We are looking at alleviating fuel poverty as well as targeting carbon emissions. So using that has been absolutely absolutely key for us. What that does mean is that we have kind of devolved responsibility to local authorities to ensure that they're engaging the local supply chain. And what we have already is seen that I think it's something like just over 90 or 95% of installers, so not management agents, they tend to be big bodies, but installers are SMEs that are engaged locally. And we're seeing a range of work. So without getting kind of too technical about it, in some schemes, especially under the first phase, so phase 1A, a lot of those local authorities had to use existing frameworks. They'd put tenders out on their existing frameworks because that's the only way you can get people on board quickly. So I'd say to get involved with local authorities, have a look at their frameworks. I know their tenders tend to be quite simple. They're not really overly complex things like government tends to do. So it is go to your local authority, ask them directly, say you want to get involved, you have capacity. And I think we need to feed it from both ways. So there's giving the funding and going, here you go and find the homes. And then it's finding the supply chain. And we know that is a risk. So please do kind of look at those tenders, contact your local authority, say, how can we get involved? How can we help? So I hope that helps, but we're not involved in saying there's another register or you need to have this. Or we're just saying local authorities can find the people and they need to tender out to get the installers. I think that answered the bits I can answer. Is there anything else that I've missed from Andre?
No, I think the next bit's for Ruth. Gary, you wanted to say something just quickly on that lads thing?
Yeah, just very quickly, friends. I will be announcing later a series of regional LAD scheme Zoom calls with the energy hubs that will be starting off from next week, and also a Are You Ready for PAS 25 Zoom call as well. So I'll do that a bit later on. So have a bit of patience, please. We have got it in hand for you.
Right, Ruth.
I was just going to add to what Kate said. Also, someone isn't on mute. I'm getting quite a lot of feedback. So I was just going to add to what Kate said about we would love to be able to say here's a 10-year program. You know, we've been all the time I've been working in government, and I've worked in amongst energy efficiency and heat schemes for a long time now. We've been asking for that, and you know, sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't. We will be working with the Treasury through the next spending review to try and get some more funding into this space. That, you know, because whilst there is the extra funding gone into LAD and there's all the funding in social housing and HUG, that does leave a space in the market. We're very aware of that. We are, you know, and one of the things that the voucher scheme has been very successful is we've had a huge number of applications for technologies like heat pumps and solid wall insulation, both of which, you know, people said, no, people won't apply for those. And we've had huge numbers of applications for them. So we're aware that there is huge untapped demand there. And we want to work, you know, we're going to try and make that case to Treasury so that we get some more funding for the next spending review. But, you know, at the moment, without any funding, it would be hard to say that what might happen there. So, but I mean, I guess watch this space. We'll keep working with Treasury, and hopefully there'll be an announcement at some point where we'll be able to say what that is. But I wouldn't, you know, at the moment, it's until the spending review happens, I can't. It's all something we've got to work on, isn't it? On the pricing stuff, Andre, I actually responded to your email this morning that you sent me directly. But what I will say is that any emails you've had about specific applications are from ICF and are based on scheme administrator determinations, because that's how the terms and conditions of the scheme work. We obviously work with them. We try to, you know, help them understand the market that's here, and to try and, you know, we've shared market data with them. But the sort of determinations they're making around costs are based on the scheme data. So this is why I've sent you, Andre, I've sent you an email about the specific case you sent me, because I think we can probably have a further chat about some of the detail of that, about, you know, how that works, and obviously I can't talk about the specific case that you sent me because I can't. That's obviously that's decisions are made by the scheme administrator, and that's the nature of the scheme. But you know, I think that we do understand your point, and it isn't something that, we don't want to stop people with the more tricky, expensive properties from being able to get work done. That's certainly not the point of this scheme, or wasn't the point of this scheme. But there are some cases, unfortunately, where the costs have come in particularly high, and in those cases, unfortunately, they will have been rejected. And that's a decision that the scheme administrator makes in line with the terms and conditions of the scheme.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Thank you. I'm going to let Andre come back very briefly, because I am aware that your time is just about up, Ruth.
Thank you very much. That's the answers are really complete and useful. Thanks very much. The only other thing to add is thanks to Ken and Gary for setting the Kickstarter scheme for the Energy Efficiency Association, and that's amazing. It's the first time we get a link between job creation and energy efficiency. So thank you, and all the installers I think should make use of that. I've already got 2 people and looking to get 4 more. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. We have a question. This is one for Ruth, I think. The Clean Homes grant is, the Clean Heat grant is going to be delivered by a voucher scheme. Is that going to be similar to the Green Deal voucher scheme, the Green Home grant voucher scheme? So the Clean Heat going to be the same as the Green Home grant?
So we did a consultation on the Clean Heat grant in April 2020. So we've had a lot longer to work on that one than we had on the voucher scheme, and consulted the way through it. There's been and obviously the department has run a heat scheme since a very long time, since before I've been working in this area, and the renewable heat incentive. And so I think there's quite a mature relationship between the supply chain and government on that scheme. So I think that will be feeding into the way that is feeding into the way the scheme is being designed. And in the consultation, they actually suggested, and this isn't obviously confirmed yet because it is still consultation still in progress, but they consulted on Ofgem being the administrator of that scheme, who obviously ran the RHI, so have a lot of experience there. Not confirmed yet. So that's obviously something they're still working through options there. But I think we can say that it's likely to be quite different in the way it runs, even if it is a voucher scheme.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm sure that if there was interest in that, I'm sure colleagues from the heat team will be able to come along once the sort of announcement about the heat and building strategy and all that sort of thing is made.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the concern is that it was just going to be the same sort of situation. We have a question here from Dean Owen. Dean, do you want to come in?
Yeah, my name's Dean Owen. I'm the Head of Business Development and Specification for SWIP, and we are an insulation system designer and material supplier. And my question was in regards to HUGs, and does that cut across ECO with HUGs focusing on off-gas rural measures? And also the second question to follow up would be, is there any more information you can give us on the HUGs framework and how that's structured?
I'm going to come in there just quickly, Kate. We are trying to organise a specific HUGs meeting with the HUGs team to discuss HUGs. So we just haven't got that formally arranged yet.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add to that, Dean, as I said at the beginning of the call, we're in the middle of PERDA, we cannot say anything on new upcoming policy. What I would say is that we did already have the 150 million committed to do a kind of a test bed, so that we are hoping to launch that in the summer. But in terms of policy detail, unfortunately, we're in PERDA until the 6th of May, so not too long. But after that, we're hoping to be able to share a bit more information on what's coming.
Thank you.
Thank
you. We have a question here. I don't know if this is maybe the last one for you, Ruth. We've had for a number of people. We've got Anne Barrydine and from Bill Snide asking about, has there been any update on the park homes standards for and what's their involvement in the LAD scheme as well?
Yeah, so we have tendered out to finalise the guide, the technical guide for park homes. So that's we know that the technical annex isn't kind of saying how to actually kind of install these things on the ground. So we're working with a lot of the market. We've got that out to tender. We've said to the people delivering that, I'm not sure I'm allowed to say who at this point in time, but they have to do public consultation on that document and how that will fit in. What we would say is this is not a way of not meeting PAS 35. It's a way to make it sure that it's suitable for park homes. I know there's been, I think Anne said there's lots of gossip of what's going on in the market. So I do kind of daily get asked about park homes. What I would say is, again, we don't specify different rules for LAD other than you have to be meeting the standards that are in place for that measure and the criteria for either Trustmark or MCS, depending on which measure it is. We also understand that the cost caps can make it quite difficult to do park homes, and we aren't in a position to be able to change those cost caps. So I know people do keep asking us to do that. We've kind of had a look at this, and we're thinking in a value for money way as well. And the kind of Treasury's point is we don't have time and we don't want to change this because it's the same as what was vouchers. And if we change this, it'll undermine some of the early delivery that's happened. But because they represent something like less than 1% of the kind of the target audience for LAD, that we're probably not able to do anything. So if they can be delivered within the cost caps and to the standards that we've said, then fabulous, continue on. If that seems like it's not going to be possible, we're not able to move that policy retrospectively, especially as delivery's already begun. It's there's so many different commercial issues around doing that. But yeah, the guide in progress. We're hoping early summer, and I know we're in April, so not too far away. Very, very like not giving a date, because I know if I give a date, it will be the incorrect date.
I don't know if Bill or Anne want to come back on that very briefly, because I'm aware that Ruth, you were supposed to be leaving at 1:45.
Well, I always like to give you a little bit longer than I've said, but yes, I am going to have to go in the next minute, I'm afraid, because I'm late for my next meeting already.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you for everything that you have done in coming on to these meetings for the last 6 months. So it is appreciated by everyone, even if you are getting a very hard time from some quarters over doing it. It is appreciated. Thank you very much. Anne or Bill, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, hi. No, it was, I had an email through this morning. There's gossip on LinkedIn regarding installing measures on park homes. So a park home is one measure, roof, floors and walls. It's the National Caravan Council that are actually writing the the information on park homes. It was only sent out to 2 companies to tender. One was ourselves, one was the National Caravan Council. So we supplied a whole load of information. But my main question here today is, it is impossible on a park home to install all 3 measures. Roofs do not come under funding, replacement roofs, only an extension in order to be able to put the external wall insulation on. So Metro Tile Decra, who supply the roofing tiles, will also agree the only way to insulate a park home roof is to strip the felt tiles and batten. You cannot cut a loft access hatch because the ceilings are only 2 by 1. You cannot lift the tiles up and blow in insulation because you will block the vents. So we need some clarity, because the gossip that is going around is absolutely scaring all the councils, read the Park Home LAD scheme. So I don't know whether Simon can clarify this. Trustmark?
Yeah, sorry, Anne, I was having desperate control of my mouse to come off mute then. we've had an awful lot of questions, and I think so has Kate and Ruth on the park home areas. And we've been very clear that because it drops into the PAS 2035 area, then the retrofit coordinator that is being engaged for that purpose should be ensuring that any plan, any upgrades that they're making to a park home are compliant with the standard. And that's where the challenge comes, as you quite rightly say, because the standard actually is being interpreted in different ways at this moment in time. So
you can't access a park home roof. There's tenders out there at the moment, and honestly, it breaks my heart seeing them. There's a tender out for a council, and they're on about cutting loft access hatches. The ceilings are 2x1. So unless we're going back to the Victorian period where we're sending up an anorexic kid, there's no way you can insulate a park home roof. The tiles are lightweight steel, they're interlocked, you cannot do it. You cannot use spray foam underneath. There's so many things that have to be clarified.
I think this is the reason, Anne, isn't it, that we, Bays went out to look for somebody to write that standard that says what you can and you cannot do, including the extension to the roof and all those other areas, which I know are all in for that consideration. So,
and
if
double
anything,
glazing, because park homes are a specialist double glazing, that wasn't even covered.
And it's also mitigating things like ventilation. It's all those other areas I know, and we've seen, as you say. So we have park homes. Anything that's being lodged is raised up through our risk register. So we actually are now auditing park homes.
Good.
So we'll be looking at any that are coming through the pipeline. But again, the pressure probably has got to go on to get the standard written so that everybody can agree what is right when it comes to retrofitting a park home. So I think we tried, I don't know how many months ago, to get a group together to discuss this. This is before it was procured, which didn't come to fruition. But Trustmark as an organisation is more than happy to work with anyone to ensure we get a route forward as quickly as we can. You're on mute again, Kenneth.
Keep doing that, sorry. Kate, do you want to say anything about the land scheme and park homes?
Not anything more than I've said. I would say to Anne, do kind of feed in to the conversation. I'm sorry, I do have another meeting at 12 o'clock, so I'm not running away on a park homes issue. But as Anne says, we have been for months trying to sort this out, and the way that we've been able to move it forward was by doing a tender to get someone to write this, and that was the fairest way we could do it, because even though we kept trying to put in different things, it just wasn't happening. So, we're trying to do our best to remedy the situation, but we need the market to help us. Sorry, there's another question that's come in from Stefan. I've just sent him my email address, but if there's maybe, Ken, if you can collate any further questions once you've sent the slides around and send them through to me, that'd be an easier way of dealing with it.
Yeah, we will do. Okay. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I need to drop off now.
Yeah, I am aware that time has passed. So thank you very much, Kate. I have one quick question for Simon from Malcolm Jackson, and that is on Trustmark information coming back on non-compliance issues. And Malcolm is asking, is it possible to provide better information on the emails that come back saying there's a non-compliance issue? Because at the moment it doesn't seem to say what the non-compliance is. It says respond in 10 days, but it then Trustmark's help desk is then saying it'll take 7 days for them to get back to tell them what the non-compliance issue is.
Are there specifics, or is it? I would need to take it away, Kenneth. But what I'll do is look. So what you're asking for is details of the non-compliance.
Yeah. I don't know if Malcolm's still here. Are you still on the call, Mal? I think he's gone now. But yeah, basically, non-compliance. The emails coming through saying that there has been a non-compliance issue picked up, not clarifying what that non-compliance issue
Clarification.
is.
Okay.
So
yeah, I'll take it away and say yes.
Process up.
Easy answer to that one, Kenneth, is yes. I'll take it away and get the team to look at it.
Thank you very much. And I think that's it in terms of all the questions we have. We've received. Obviously, Ruth and Kate have had to go. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to say, Simon. That
I think
yeah.
I think everything's really been said, isn't it? You know, it's been a really challenging set of months. We are sort of progressing through it. The one area that we're pushing government for at the moment, I know, and Kate's alluded and Ruth has alluded to, is the able to pay market, because that's the area at the moment that we are really concerned about. The other area as well is that, and I saw it in the chat earlier, is to make sure that the SMEs and micros are not forgotten in this drive forward. All right, local authority schemes historically have been for larger national businesses, and we are very much driving the program to get the micros and the SMEs involved in this as well. You know, this is about a whole sector delivering. It's not about individual areas of that sector. And I think, Kenneth, for you and for Gary, I think that's some of the areas we've got to ensure that, you know, that happens, because it will bring. And then some of the other areas really would be sort of the development and the bringing through of people to support the industry as we move forward. I think, you know, the skills gap is something that we do need to address. I know that you're doing quite a lot around those areas. So good sort of thinking on your part.
Thank you, Simon. Gary, do you want to wrap up?
Thank you very much. Right, yeah, I've got a few things here actually, a bit busier than normal on my wrap up. One thing I will add to Andre's point, speaking to installers all around the UK, it seems that things are actually now working now they've pulled the plug. I think, you know, but I think we need to push that they do reconsider the Green Homes Voucher Scheme. As you are aware, I've been helping companies get their vouchers paid to the tune of nearly 500,000 now. So we're about £500,000 that we've managed to get paid for the varying people. If any of you have vouchers that you have installed that you haven't been paid for, please email me the voucher numbers and we'll see if we can help get them paid. 2 hours is the fastest I've managed to get a voucher pay so far. So we're not doing too bad. Andre mentioned the Kickstart scheme. Pleasure, as always, to try and help youngsters back into work. And we've got several companies on this call that we've now placed people with. For those of you that we haven't yet, please be patient. We're working with the Department for Work and Pensions, which is quite a slow process. We are currently looking for in the region of about 260 jobs for varying companies. Again, if you want to know about the Kickstart scheme, predominantly it's 18 to 24-year-olds, although they do say 16, 6 months from Universal Credit, FOC. So they will get 25 hours paid for including pension and NI. And you'll even have some money to help towards their development. This is now actually starting to ramp up quite well. We were slow at the beginning because obviously we had to understand the process. Again, if you are looking for these people now, please be mindful. These are young people who need a chance to shine. They need to be able to grow within a company. You know, they are not people that have got endless experience. So they need help, but in there are some good people and we will filter, we will help you on that. Moving on, Zoom calls. We are going to run a series of regional Zoom calls on the local authority delivery scheme. Now, when Kate showed you the slides, predominantly it was the energy hubs. all 5 energy hubs are partners of the association. And we have agreed with all 5 of them to run regional Zoom calls on exactly what you guys want. And that is what it's about, who can get involved and how you get involved. So starting from next week at 1 p.m, all of them are on a Thursday, by the way. So 1 p.m. next week, we've got East of England, London and the Southeast. The following Thursday, we have the Midlands, and then we have the Northwest, the Southwest, and then finally Northeast and Yorkshire. So we got a whole list. We'll send an email out regarding all of these. We've already got 50 booked in for next week. So, you know, it's proving quite popular. I've been quite active on LinkedIn with it. Our final Zoom call on this series is on the 3rd of June. And it is highlighted, are you ready for PAS 2035? If you're not, you're in trouble. Now, quite simply, I've spoken to a number of installers who have told me the amazing amount of work that is required to get yourself ready. And some people who think they're ready quite clearly are not. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a Zoom call on what it is you need. You know, it may be that, you know, we're a little bit late to do it, but I think it's better to do it before you actually have to have it and find out what you've got to do so you can get on with it. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a hole. So that will be on the 3rd of June, 11 a.m. For that side of things, that's it. The only other thing I've got to say is you may have had an email that the awards are back. Starting on the 25th of June, we are now going to be running our awards again. Now, obviously, that's a separate company with Ken and myself. I've got details of all of the regional awards throughout the whole of the UK. We've got them all booked in. And hopefully, we can get through the next 2 stages and we can all meet up and get the awards going again. I think anything anybody wants from me, if you're not a member of the association, you need to be. The association is growing quite quickly now. We're over sort of about 330 members now. So it's grown very, very quickly in the last couple of months. We'll keep bringing you stuff. Ken said the hug scheme, you know, as soon as we can do a Zoom call, we will do. If anything else you want us to do a Zoom call on, quite enjoy doing these now. So, you know, we try and do 1 a week. I can't do more than that, unfortunately. I'd like to thank you all very, very much for supporting us with the Green Homes Voucher Scheme Zoom calls. Thank you very much, Simon, for your knowledge. And of course, Ruth, if we can get it there, and I don't think they'll change their mind, but I think, you know, getting this scheme back on track to actually go and spell that 2 billion would be fantastic. They've got their act together. Maybe it's a bit late as far as that's concerned, but of course, as I've said to you before, you know, there are other schemes coming along. We have got to really push now that they come to us to find out what the pitfalls are before they go launching these schemes, because it could have quite clearly got rid of a lot of the smog that they've bumped into and haven't been able to say their way through. We need to get a task force, an industry task force of brains together for sorting out schemes. And then we take it to them and say, look, okay, we need to be Trustmark compliant with everything we do. The standards are massively important. We need to make sure that the PAS is recognised and everybody that's involved is to the correct standards, and we get rid of those that are not. We have to protect our own industry. If we protect our own industry, we move forward at a better pace. But it's about time our industry came up with some of the ways forward, rather than working for elastoplast and doing everything bit by bit. We need to look at how we manage to stop invading people's homes time after time after time and get it done once, give them all the benefits in one go and move it forward. We can do this as an association. we can come up with that overall scheme and how it works, and then go, right, we need 5 billion quid to do it. And we will work with everybody to try and help do that, especially with Trustmark, with what they're doing. That's me done. Sorry I've wobbled on a bit, but if you need me for anything, Gary at energyefficiency.association.co.uk, any of what I've told you, if you need any help, please you know, just let me know. I'm always here to help. I'd like to thank Kenneth for doing the questions on all of these, because I didn't have the guts to do it. And well done, Ken. I think you've done a tremendous job, mate. Thank you so much, everybody. No doubt I'll be in contact with you very, very soon, if it isn't just for entering the awards. But, you know, it's been a pleasure. But then, of course, we'll be seeing you next week, and the week after that, and the week after that. So thanks very much, guys. I'm going to sign off now. Nice to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary. So, as Gary said, we will see you next week if you're interested in the regional lads meeting for the Southeast. And I just want to say thank you again to Simon. Useful as ever. Ruth and Kate, it's great to see Bays getting involved with the industry at any level, answering any questions. And they've both been very helpful today, I think. Not that we had that many questions for them, but maybe in the next one we'll have a few more. And we shall see you soon. So thank you very much, everyone.
Can I ask one last question, please? Just one last question.
Right.
What's the chances, and maybe I should have asked this at the beginning when it was everyone, what's the chances of us encouraging every installer to ask their customers and people who applied for a green home grants to write to their MPs, write to green home grants to say, extend this thing, it's working? I'm going to do that.
It's an option for installers to do. It's not something that, as the association, we would coordinate or do directly, because we're not allowed to lobby on behalf of any particular cause. If someone is looking for the names of their MPs or looking for contact details, we have got access to all that information. That we can help with that, with the communication side of things, but we can't help with saying for a message to go out specifically. If you wish to talk to your MPs, we always think that's a very good idea. We think the more MPs know about the industry, the better. And we do talk to a lot of MPs on a regular basis. But it's not a campaign. It's not something that we would organise. But if anyone wishes to contact you about that, then okay, the message has gone out there to the members.
I think the fact is we can't be the bow, but we can supply you with all the arrows.
Okay, right. Well, thank you very much. I don't think there's anything else. So, wish you all a very good day.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Ta-ra. Ta-ra.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.